Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Juan on Juan podcast. I'm your host, Juan. Today we had Jonas on the podcast again, and we talked about, honestly, it was based on one of his videos that he posted, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, man, this is really good content, dude. We should do a podcast about it and elaborate a little bit on it. A lot of the topics we covered today, they can be episodes all on their own, honestly. And we touched on them briefly and gave our input and, some background on it. Today we broke down 5 topics that are going to contribute to the awakening of humanity and really revolutionize how the world and how humanity sees the world and life and everything that's around us. These are really thought-provoking topics, and I love it. I love this type of stuff. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I enjoyed recording it. And again, thank you, Jonas. This is The Awakening of Humanity with Jonas Rosen. Welcome back to the show, man.
All right. Good to be here. Yeah, I mean, it feels like we just connected a few weeks ago and doing our second podcast already, and I'm excited, man. It's great to be here.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time to be on today. And before we start, what's your YouTube channel, whatever social media you want to share so that people can find your work?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, man. Really, it's mainly my YouTube channel. I have a YouTube channel called Cosmic Consciousness with Jonas. And on that channel, I discuss a whole bunch of different stuff, basically the mysteries of life and, asking big questions and exploring some big questions in terms of the nature of consciousness, a whole bunch of different mysteries related to the UFO phenomenon and ancient human history, as well as psychedelics. I'm very passionate about psychedelics, specifically as tools for healing, therapeutic tools for healing and awakening. So you can find all that and more on my YouTube channel.
Yeah, I started following you because I think I saw a video of DMT, and that's how I came across you.
Yeah.
And today's episode is going to be loosely based on one of your videos that inspired me. And I saw it and I immediately texted you and I was like, dude, this is gold, man. And what pissed me off about it was that you came up with all these good topics and then you were just like teasing with them. It's like, wait a minute. You can't just say that and then not go in like any more depth. So it's like these, you call it the awakening of humanity, and you have these predictions. What made you? How'd you come up with these predictions? Is this something you've been thinking about, or you've seen, or what?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, it comes from I've been looking into I've just been asking big questions for a long time, and I mean, it's a combination of some of the knowledge and insights I've acquired over time, as well as just my own intuitive sense. But I think anyone looking at the situation right now, there's no doubt that humanity, something big is going on right now on planet Earth, right? Like, and in the human collective in particular, we're seeing this. It's a very complex issue with a lot going on, but just to break it down a little bit, obviously we have massive social unrest all over the world, political destabilization, mass demonstrations going on. Meanwhile, we have a ecological crisis that desperately needs addressing. And what it ultimately comes down to is, if we want to save our species from self-destruction, and this sounds extreme, but it really is true. If we want to save our species from self-destruction, ultimately we need an evolution of consciousness. Like, we need more than just clever politics and changes in the external world. We need a deeper inner transformation of the human collective. And that's kind of why, like, in thinking a lot about that and all the different factors that are coming together, like this big confluence of all these different things coming together, that's kind of like, I do believe that humanity is, like, a new era is starting to dawn for humanity. And like, all the social upheaval and issues that we're seeing in the world are like the birthing pangs of a new era. like a new era is being born before our eyes, and that's obviously a very challenging and painful process in a lot of ways. I believe that a lot of kind of the old structures have to crumble basically to make way for something new to emerge, you know? But that's basically why I started talking about this, because it's the way of the universe is evolution, right? Like from the Big Bang to this, with each passing moment, there's this unfolding process that's going on, like this massive cosmic unfolding that's just, infinite. And we are all a part of that. We're all part of this greater movement, something that's way bigger than just us and ultimately bigger than humanity as well. But we're a part of this natural unfolding process of the cosmos. I believe it's a law of the universe to always be unfolding and just dynamic, like dynamism, changing, but also evolving in a while. And like evolving all the while is what I meant. And so that's part of what I see, that like humanity as a you can stop me anytime because I could just keep rambling on.
I was gonna ask you. Now, your thing, man. I was gonna ask you, and I don't mean to get religious, but would you say it's biblical in a sense?
Yeah, I mean, yes, in a sense. I think that I would say that it's not exclusively biblical. I would say that the Bible and many of the sacred scriptures from all over the world, they spoke of this time, this time of great awakening, of great changes and upheaval on the planet. You have stories, like I to be honest, I really don't know all that much about the Bible, but I mean, you have stories, for example, like the Great Flood, this kind of great cleansing that made way for something new to emerge. But I mean, also, for example, if you look at the ancient Mayans as well as the ancient Egyptians, they all had a mythology, they told stories about this time, the coming of a new age for humanity that would be preceded by great changes and great challenges. And I think that's kind of where we're at right now. We're like in the in between times where we're transitioning to a new age. We're on the verge of this, I believe, really exploding into the mainstream. But yeah.
This is just a preface. We're gonna break down the points that you bring up in the video, and we're gonna elaborate on some of those points. And when you talk about you know the thing with these ancient scriptures is, I feel you need a mystical comprehension as well as a literal comprehension, because for example the book Revelations, there's people take that in a literal sense, and there's other theories behind why it was written at the time as it was written and who it's referring to in that text. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But if people don't comprehend it correctly, and again that's the thing with religion, you comprehend it, again, a mystical comprehension and then a literal comprehension. You have to look at both parts because it can go a lot deeper than that. Would you say that, speaking of the Mayans, did the world end in 2012? What are your thoughts on that?
Did the world end in 2012? I mean, we still here, right?
Well, yeah, but again, the age, did it end as far, or we're in a simulation? The world did end. You don't know.
Well, well, listen, I don't close off any possibilities. Like in my perspective, the simple fact that we're alive right now is such an astounding miracle that all possibilities are on the table. That's how I see it. I don't know is the honest answer. But I mean, I my understanding is that the ancient Mayan prophecy wasn't so much predicting a doomsday, like cataclysmic scenario where the world was literally going to end, as much as the age, like the epic, the
The
epoch,
symbolism.
right? Like it's kind of more metaphorical, like understanding of it, how the like a humanity transitioning into a new age, the old age is ending, and um Yeah, I mean that's my understanding. Again, I don't know that much detail about it, to be honest, but that's how I understand it, and I do think that is very much accurate. Like that is what we're seeing. I do think that we're, as I've been saying, transitioning into a new age as a collective. So yeah.
So I'm gonna read two quotes that you had in the video that I really liked. The one by Albert Einstein and Nikola Tesla. The one by Albert Einstein: "No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it." I think that's very
Right.
powerful. And also, the day science begins to study non-physical phenomenon, it will make more progress in one decade than in all the previous centuries of its existence. Nikola Tesla. That's
Yep.
that's also, Nikola Tesla was this guy who he believed in the frequencies of the world, and 369, and he said that the answers to everything are in those numbers. And again, that's crazy,
He deserves an entire episode to himself.
Yes, he does.
I
Yeah,
mean,
there's a lot of
he's
stuff there.
easily one of the greatest, most brilliant scientific luminaries in human history,
Not
and
given enough
he's the
credit
reason
whatsoever.
why he's responsible for basically the electrical, um, the way that our electrical grids are set up all around the world. This alternating current system, compared to what Edison was developing at the time, which was, I believe, the direct current. And the alternating current is way more efficient, way more effective for transmitting power over long distances. So anyway, that's a whole other tangent.
Yeah, and when it comes to that, dude, I got some conspiracy theories that are linked to that too. But again, that'll be, we could do another episode on that. But
Yeah. Well, hey, let's break down like some of the points, because I feel like I've been rambling a lot about like this awakening, and I do think it's helpful to kind of break down some of the
yeah.
points.
Well, the first one that I want to bring up is, and the first one that you bring up, and I kind of combine it with another one because I feel they relate in a way. The first one is spiritual revolution and the birth of a planetary citizenship. Spiritual revolution, I feel, is the more difficult one to understand because uh, it's within ourselves. You know what I mean? It's finding that oneness in you and becoming, and like how you were relating the world and these fake borders that
Mm,
we came up with. But when you look at the world from space, you don't see those borders. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So can you elaborate on that spiritual revolution, and then we can transition it to the birth of a planetary citizenship?
Yes. Yes. Um, so the spiritual revolution, it very much goes back to that Einstein quote that we can't solve our problems from the same state or the same level of consciousness from which they were created. In order to save our species, basically, we need an evolution of consciousness where we transcend the old ways of thinking and behaving that got us in this situation in the first place, right? Like greed, egotism, racism, like basically, and nationalism as well, which goes to that planetary citizenship. But so basically, we need this deeper inner transformation of humanity, uh, in order to save our species again. Like I'm not even being dramatic there. That's quite literally the truth over longer periods of time. And what that's another name, like it's a synonym for inner transformation, spiritual evolution. Spiritual evolution on a mass scale is a spiritual revolution. And we're already seeing that happen. Like we're seeing more and more people getting interested, opening their minds and opening their hearts and engaging with life in a deeper way. That's why I think, for example, and as I guess we'll talk about more later in the video, we're seeing this resurgence in psychedelics. We're seeing more people investigating like all this esoteric wisdom and esoteric knowledge and wisdom teachings and non-duality and spiritual teachings. We're seeing that blossom all over the world, and particularly in the Western society. See, this is another big part of, I think, why we're in this situation as a human family right now, is because we've lost our connection with spirit. Like we've gone so deeply into the material realm that we've forgotten that we are like infinite divine beings. That's just my perspective.
That's society though, dude. That conditioning.
It
And I
is
talk about
it's
this.
very much our social conditioning. It's very much our social conditioning, and like we yeah, I mean I don't even see this from a purely like spiritual or religious perspective, I also see it from a scientific perspective, how more and more quantum physics is proving that consciousness, like the essence of our being, the truth of what we are, consciousness is non-local, which means it exists beyond the body, beyond the brain, and beyond space and time altogether, like beyond this universe. That's what I mean when I say we are infinite divine beings in a temporary human lifetime. We are all spiritual beings having a human experience. Like, that's the truth. And
Yeah.
we've lost sight of that. We've lost our connection to the fact that we are multidimensional beings. Like, um, yeah. So reestablishing this connect, and again, like, it's a very complex, like everything's interconnected, and like it's hard to like really break this down in a succinct way, but this is part of our human evolution. Like, the next stage in human evolution, like how I was saying that the universe is, it's a law of the universe to just evolve, to it never stops. The next stage in our human evolution isn't, it's not a physical evolution, it's an evolution of consciousness. It's an evolution of our collective mind. And as we open up our collective minds, our we also open up our collective hearts. Like, that's real. And that's what I call a spiritual evolution, a spiritual revolution of humanity. And I mean, yeah, it does very much connect with this idea, like the birth of planetary citizenship. Again, not even from a spiritual perspective, from a scientific perspective, is a scientific fact, is a truth of life that we are all one, right? Oneness is the truth. There's no, we all must come to this realization. Oneness is the truth. I talk about it in like all day. Oneness is the truth,
Yeah.
man. And quantum physics has proved this, but even if you look at the Big Bang Theory and just trace the history back of our universe, we all emerged from the same source, right? Like, we're
Mm-hmm.
all made of the same underlying reality. That's an obvious common sense fact that, yes, on the surface we're different, but on a deeper level we're all one. And from that perspective, like from that higher state of consciousness, that broader awareness, like if you zoom out and look at the Earth from space, the Earth, this little planetary spaceship that we all share, is the tiniest speck of dust in the bigger picture.
Oh
And we
yeah.
all share it together. Like, we're all one. We drew the lines on the map. And yes, I understand, like, in some ways they do serve a purpose and like blah blah blah. But I'm talking like in the if you project like the evolution of humanity out hundreds, thousands of years into the future, at some point it's no longer going to make any sense to have these superficial divisions, like, I'm from this country, you're from that country, this is mine and that's
It,
yours. Like,
it doesn't matter. It doesn't
it
matter.
it doesn't matter. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like,
No, but again, that
the deeper truth is oneness, and like that's the trajectory of our evolution. We're moving in that direction. So
that's again that conditioning that I'm talking about. We know it doesn't matter, but we let life be ruled by a piece of paper that they give value to, and people are so oblivious to their surroundings that they're not going to seek to have that spiritual revolution. They're not going to care. You know what I mean? Because there's all these other things at work and at play that people aren't paying attention. Now people are, and they're starting to realize that. But
mhm.
I feel like everybody's always so into their own thing that they don't even care to find whatever it is, you know. Um, moving on here, and I know this is something you're very passionate about, and one of the things that you talked about in the video, psychedelics and plant medicines playing a major and central role in the Great Awakening. Obviously, you're an advocate when it comes to psychedelics due to their rate of success, and it's incredible these things that they're able to accomplish. But again, there's other forces at work, big pharma, other factors, because it's a business. You know, like 6 months after one dose of psilocybin cures depression.
Yeah,
And I saw another study where 4 to 5 years after cancer patients take a dose, they feel better. Dealing with a terminal illness, anxiety, depression, all these different things that's going on, it makes them feel better 4 to 5 years after they take one dose. That's incredible.
a single dose. Yeah, And I mean, it truly is incredible. And I mean, very simply put, there's no other treatment or there's no other, psychiatric intervention that comes even close to that. Nowhere close to that. This is a quantum leap. This is the irony of it is that these are natural substances that are ancient. They've been around for thousands of years. They've been around
Grows
since
from
the
the earth.
dawn of humanity.
Grows from the earth.
They're gifts from Mother Earth, yo. And like this is going back to our roots. This is like our ancestors, the indigenous people all over the world, all throughout history, just about every single group of indigenous peoples used plant medicines, natural entheogens to alter their state of consciousness to do a number of different things for both healing and awakening and connecting with divinity. And we've lost that like in the past couple of decades. But yeah, I mean that's coming back in a big way. And a big part of it is that very respected and highly esteemed research institutions such as Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, Imperial College of London, there's a bunch of them all over the world are starting to investigate this in a very rigorous scientific way, and the numbers don't lie. The numbers speak for themselves.
And that's the
Anyone
problem, Jonas.
anyone using common sense can look at this research, see the results of this research that after one dose, one high dose of psilocybin, for example, as you mentioned, 6 months later, around 60% of people are completely cured of depression, and
Wow.
80% of people have a significant reduction of symptoms. That's after one dose 6 months later. Like it's really remarkable, and it just speaks to how powerful these substances are. So I do think that this is going to be a very central like driving force that helps push along this great like this evolution and awakening of humanity, because ultimately what this evolution of humanity comes down to is the evolution of each one of us, right?
Yeah.
And so like as you and I and all the rest of us go through our process of healing in a deep way, go through our process of awakening, opening our minds and opening our hearts, then that's our contribution to the collective evolution. And psychedelics are not the only tool, but they are one of the most powerful and profound and accessible tools that we have at our disposal, both for healing and awakening. Again, it's not. I do think that psychedelics are absolutely going to revolutionize the entire field of mental health when it comes to addressing depression, anxiety, trauma, all of it, even substance addiction as well. But beyond that, it's also again about this deeper spiritual evolution. Like I think that this will help us connect with, reconnect to spirit, as I was talking about earlier, because like that's there's a very it's not always, but a big percentage of people have these deeply spiritual experiences through psilocybin. That's another one of the unbelievable results from this psychedelic research. Some crazy percentage of people, like 70% of people, rate the high dose experience as one of the top five most meaningful experiences in their entire life.
What's high dose? How much is a high dose considered
Uh, well, it
for
kind of
research
varies.
purposes?
It kind of varies from person to person, but for psilocybin, I would say like over 5 grams of psilocybin mushrooms
That's it.
um, would generally be in a research setting be considered a high dose. I don't actually know the figure that they would call off the top of my head, but
Yeah. Or
yeah.
from
So there,
experience,
go
have you
ahead, go
done
ahead.
one of the heroic what they call heroic dose or something like that? Have
Say
you
again.
done
Have
that?
I done it?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Why do you think I'm here saying all this stuff?
Oh man. So plant medicines, psychedelics, the numbers don't lie, and that's the problem. I
That's
feel
the
like when
facts.
when nowadays I feel that these things that we're getting, these chemicals that they're prescribing people. I'm not on any meds, but the chemicals they prescribe people, I feel like the symptoms of that medicine is worse than what they're treating. So how do you feel about big pharma? Do you feel it's like it's a business? Like, what's your thoughts on that
I mean, that's
before we move on?
obvious, right? That's obvious. I mean, time and time again, Big Pharma has demonstrated that it's all about the bottom line for them. It's not about actually helping people heal and get better, which is supposedly the entire objective of why they exist in the first place. So there's like an incredible irony, there's an incredible greed that's definitely very visible and apparent in Big Pharma. And the thing is that, yeah, they're facing a big challenge here with psychedelics. I'm curious to see how this is all going to play out because again, what it comes down to is like if you're taking like an antidepressant medication or an anti-anxiety medication, like one of these pharmaceutical drugs, you're taking them every day, right? Like usually, most typically, if you're taking an antidepressant, it's every day, maybe even multiple times a day. As you said, there's all these side effects, and they're treating the symptoms, right? It's like a band-aid. It's like it's helping you treat the symptoms and make the symptoms less severe. With psychedelics, on the other hand, again, this is a quantum leap because you're not taking it every day. You're doing one high dose, and instead of treating the symptoms, it's going to the very root. It's addressing the very root cause of the mental illness. So like again, it's a quantum leap. This I do believe that if used in the right way, again, like it's very important. It goes without saying that it's very important to do this in a highly competent, very safe and responsible way. That goes without saying. But if all that, if those, if in the right conditions, this will make um, this will make these pharmaceutical drugs obsolete.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And before we move on here, I wanted to add one more thought to it. I think I saw a report of it yesterday. There was this CEO or somebody of some big pharma who got put in jail for only 5.5 years because his company was taking a kickback from these. I forgot who it was. Somebody was getting a kickback from prescribing narcotics to people, and all these opioids and all this stuff that they give people. So just that it is what it is, but it's obviously a business. Um,
Sure.
so the next topic, which is one that I'm passionate about and I believe in, merger of science with spirituality. Obviously,
Yes.
consciousness is infinite. Quantum physics and spirituality go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. And there's a quote that I want to insert here that has to do with the string theory and the multiverse theory. The laws of physics are a death warrant to all intelligent life. In order to escape, you must leave the universe you are in. That's Michio Kaku, one of the famous uh, physicists here, and one of the most famous ones in the world, actually.
Yeah.
Um, so, what do you
That's an
think about
interesting
that?
quote. I mean, I'm definitely a fan of Michio Kaku. I'm not sure what context he said that in.
And he's talking about multiverses, about wormholes and all this stuff, and pretty much jumping dimensions is what he was talking about, and how they don't even we don't even know. String theory is the theory of everything, and we don't even know what it is. We don't even begin to understand it. Just how we don't,
Well,
know what consciousness.
it's a proposed theory of everything,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
it's one attempt at a so-called unified theory.
because we are one.
Yeah.
We are all one. And again, like you said, it's attempting to, you know, relate everything in a way, which I believe it is. It is
So
true.
basically, like where we're at, this is from my understanding, is that we have basically we have a physics for big objects in the universe. It's called general relativity. This is like the billiard ball, Newtonian mechanics governing like the laws of motion and thermodynamics and all that stuff. That's like classical physics, general relativity. Then we also have quantum physics, right, which was discovered in the 1920s, and that's dealing with stuff on the very, very, very tiny small level, right? So we have like one for the macro and one for the micro, and both of them are very, very like accurate and function very well mathematically in terms of our understanding of the universe. So they're both like accurate and correct in their own sense, but reconciling the two, like bringing them together and unifying these two basically schools of physics, has proved to be an enormously difficult challenge, for reasons beyond my understanding. I do understand that really gravity is at the core of it. Like, gravity is something that seems so, we take it for granted, and it seems like such a kind of, ordinary part of our everyday life. But at the same time, it's still a complete mystery. Like, we don't understand gravity, and that's at the very core of this problem of unifying general relativity with quantum theory. But yeah, I mean, I do think that science and spirituality over time are going to, like, the divisions between the two are progressively going to break down. And the reason I say that is, well, yeah, I mean, ultimately everything is one, right? Coming back to that fundamental truth. And both science and spirituality are exploring the same fundamental reality, like the same underlying reality. Science is looking outwardly and spirituality is looking inwardly, but they're both exploring life itself.
Yep.
And so they're both exploring the same truth. So ultimately, there's not a distinction between the two. And it's really funny, actually, that some of the greatest spiritual visionaries, like all throughout history, from Buddha to Jesus, they all tell us the same things, right? That one, all is one. Like, that's the core truth that's found throughout all the spiritual and religious, like major spiritual and religious teachings all over the world. All is one. And two, we are divine. We are infinite divine beings. And what's really ironic is that that was stated thousands of years ago, and finally, thousands of years later, our most advanced science is just starting to catch up with those realizations. Quantum physics is now finally starting to discover scientifically that, yes, all is one, and two, yes, we are infinite beings, because consciousness is non-local. It's beyond the physical. It's beyond this physical lifetime. So our most advanced science now is starting to scientifically prove the mystical truths, the mystical insights that have been described for thousands of years. And I think that's one part of it. I think there's a number of different fields of research that's going to, like, accelerate this merger of science and spirituality. And absolutely, like, quantum physics is at the very core of it. I would also say that research into psychedelics, to bring up this topic again, is very central to this, because so many people in the psychedelic experience that's now being studied in the lab, so to speak, so many of these people are having these deeply spiritual, metaphysical experiences, and a lot of them are describing the same key insights and the same, like, they're seeing very similar things,
Wow.
and it's making a lot of these more intellectual people really grapple with these spiritual or religious questions. I mean, there's a lot more to it than all that, but
on the topic of identifying consciousness and where it originated from, I know I was speaking to you about the Gnostics, and I feel that the Gnostics, they understood this concept, because for them, thought came first. And in order to understand the ending, you must understand the beginning, because the end is where the beginning is. And the Trinity, if you want to call it the Holy Trinity for the Gnostics, you have the one, and then you have thinking, which is the father figure, thought thinking, the mother, Sophia, and then you have thinking a thought of itself thinking, which is Christ, Christo, the child. So you have that holy divinity, if you want to call it. And they understood that. They understood that the thought came first. And it evolved, It evolved from that, and then obviously you have their story of creation, which that's Gnosticism, and you can look that up because that's really deep. But at the end of the day, I found that really, really profound and really interesting, because it's almost like they understood this. They're almost like quantum physicists in a way. They're like, what? Consciousness came first. Consciousness was always there, and that's how we came to be. You know what I mean? Like, from a thought, we came to be.
That's that's really the core of it as I see it. It's a new science of consciousness is emerging where we realize that consciousness is not produced by the brain or generated by the brain. I think we may have talked about this last podcast as well, but just this key insight that consciousness is not produced by the brain. Like, yes, there's obviously some relationship between the brain and consciousness, but I see it more as like a computer, like how the computer doesn't generate the electrical current. It needs the electrical current to function and to come to life, so to speak, but it doesn't produce that electrical current. The electricity exists independently of it. And likewise, the brain doesn't produce the consciousness, but like the consciousness exists independently prior to the brain itself. And that's why I say again and again, I'll say it for the rest of my life, we are divine infinite beings in a human lifetime. We are multi-dimensional infinite beings. And like, just when a computer breaks, the electricity continues on,
Yeah.
like not in that physical form, not in that manifestation, but um it doesn't need a computer to exist.
To add on to that, again, the Gnostics, they also thought that we were divine within ourselves when we were made because divinity was passed down to us. So another thing, this is in my notes. Um, your brain hallucinates your conscious reality. So there's billions of neurons that are working together to generate a conscious experience, and it's our own conscious experience. And there's this neuroscientist that Anil Seth, and I was watching this TED talk with him. This very interesting talk, very interesting quote that he said. We're all hallucinating all the time. When we agree about our hallucinations, we call it reality. And that was when I read that, I was like, whoa, because
It's
because
true, man. It really
you
is.
know you do know that when we're not face to face, but when you look at somebody, um, you're not seeing them in absolute real time because when you look at them, you're looking at them. Light reflects off the photons, enters your retina, travels through your brain, goes to the back of the brain, registers, and you're registering it, even if it's milliseconds, but you're still not seeing people for what they are, for what they
Yep,
truly are. You know what I mean?
correct.
And even till this day, we don't understand what vision is. There's so many things in this world that we don't understand, and it's
Yep.
insane. We're trying to comprehend consciousness, but until Isaac Newton made his discovery of optics. There's people who thought that vision was active, that we have these laser beams that shoot out of our eyes. The extramission and
Mhm.
intromission theory of vision.
Mhm.
That vision is an active thing and not passive. And again, so many things that we don't even begin to understand. But again, when
Well,
you look,
well,
it's
yeah. I mean,
insane.
here, I didn't mean to interrupt you, man, but it was just like something popped in my mind.
Go ahead, go ahead.
What's that? You said so many things that we don't understand. I mean, a few years ago, I saw this chart that was talking about like dark matter and dark energy, and apparently, like ordinary matter, like the basically, in other words, the entire physical universe is only 4%
Yeah, and the rest is dark.
of the observed universe. Like
Yeah,
96% of this universe is dark matter and dark energy,
that's
which, to
insane.
explain what that is, we have no idea.
We know what it
Like
does. Well,
96% of this universe, we don't know the first thing about it. We just know it's there and we can detect it from its gravitational effects, and the universe is expanding. And that's why we there has to, like, dark energy has to come into play somewhere, because what is that force, that mysterious force that's driving the accelerating expansion of the universe? And we have no idea what 96% of the cosmos is. Like, we think we're so intelligent. We
that's insane.
we haven't even scratched the surface yet.
To add on one more thought before we move on to the next topic, which is a juicy one. About the vision. You are seeing me as I was, not as I am. Because remember, you're not ever gonna see somebody in the full time. There's always a delay there because of all the data input and all that stuff. And I thought that was interesting.
Mm.
So the next topic in line here is new discoveries about ancient human history, and that is one that obviously that I'm in because there's just so many things that we don't understand. It just blows my mind. We're killing our own world. We're killing our own world, but then we have people like Elon Musk that want to send people to Mars to do what? To destroy that planet as well? Like, why can't we deal with the mess that we made? You know what I mean? It's paradoxical. It's like you want to start a new planet for what, dude? You can't even deal with the one that you have. You know what I mean? And you're
Hmm.
destroying it. So when it comes to this ancient history and all these different sites around the world and all these things, again, there's a symbolic interpretation and then there's a literal interpretation. Like for example, 85% of Egypt is still buried. It's kind of hard to understand the history and try to put together the pieces of the puzzle when there's a bunch of pieces still missing. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
what's your input on that as far as discoveries? And do you think we would even benefit from knowing where we originated from? How that would change the entire world?
Yeah.
I think it
Yeah,
would be more
absolutely. I mean, I
worse
can
than
share my
good.
thoughts. I can share my thoughts on that. Yeah, I wouldn't say I know, but I can share my perspective. See, here's the thing, like Earth has existed for around 4.5 billion years, right? And modern humanity, like anatomically modern humans have existed on this planet for around 200,000 years. In the scope of 4.5 billion years, 200,000 years is nothing. And we think that we have such a full understanding of the history of this planet. We don't know anything. We don't
Nothing.
know anything. And like there's if you examine some of the most famous ancient sites all over the world, there are so many just absolutely baffling mysteries, both about how these ancient builders would have achieved certain feats of engineering, certain feats of design and planning and execution on the massive scale and the artistic mastery that they were able to pull off. If you start to really look at the evidence and connect the dots at a couple of these different sites all over the globe, then I am now convinced that we are missing major chapters from our understanding of human history, and more specifically that at some point in the distant past there did exist on planet Earth highly advanced civilizations who we now have no knowledge of. Like, we think that we know that we are the most advanced civilization, like modern humanity is the most advanced civilization on planet Earth that has ever existed. We think we know that. We don't know that for a fact. Again, we've only been around for 200,000 years. Like, we have no idea about the bigger picture history of this planet, right? And again, I do see this as very much um, tying back into this great awakening of humanity in a lot of different ways because well, it's hard to know where to begin. I mean, there's so much to be said about that, but like I think that this has the potential to give us new insights into some of the biggest questions about human life on Earth, as well as our potential as human beings. Like where this evolution can potentially take us. Um, yeah.
So it ties again to that Gnostic view that I was talking about. To understand the end, you must understand the beginning. Why? Because the beginning is, the end is where the beginning is. And it's incredible what these people were able to do, what they were able to accomplish. And we talk about the Mayans, we talk about all these different people. There's this tribe, and talking about one of the things I admire about Brian Forrester is that when he talks about ancient civilizations and all these ancient people, he says, "Why are all these scholars talking for the indigenous people? Ask the people what they know of this. Like
Yes.
and how you had mentioned in the last episode, how they know to mix up these two plants. Well, the plants told them. It's like
Yep.
Mother Nature told them. So
Boom.
one of this very interesting tribe I came across, and it's got to relate with the Anunnaki, and are we descendants of an alien race? That's always been the thing. Aliens, everybody's aliens, aliens. The thing is, the Dogon tribe of West Africa, they
Mhm.
had this knowledge of deep space, dude.
Mhm.
That they found stars. So this tribe was discovered in 1935, and they knew the Sirius star system. They knew that there were stars there that weren't discovered till 50 years after they already knew about it. How? And then again, you ask them. So they found companion stars in the Sirius star system, but the problem is, it's like you're asking me, okay, what does it matter? You can just look up in the sky and look. The problem with that is that Sirius B is not visible to the
Mhm.
naked eye and barely
Mhm.
visible in a modern day telescope because it's a white dwarf. And
Mhm.
not only did they know it was a white dwarf, it's like, okay, well, maybe they got lucky. They knew first of all, it's the smallest form of a star, and they also knew the mass it had because they called it a tiny star, but the heaviest that there is, because white dwarfs have the highest density of any celestial body. So they not
Mm.
only did they know where it was, they knew it was a white dwarf, and they asked them where they got this knowledge from, and they claimed the knowledge was passed down from these people they called the nomos. The interesting part about that is they have pictures of them as these ugly amphibious beings, so like these fishmen, right? But the problem with that is, dude, that traces all the way back to ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia. All these correlations that we talked about, and at the ending of the episode we had done before, you can see this. So it's like, is there really a correlation, or you know what I mean? So it's just blows my mind. But when they ask these people, where they tell you where they got the knowledge from, and it's incredible, what they were able to
Yeah.
do. So
Yeah. Yeah,
that's that.
and it is I mean, that's one of those cases that's absolutely mind-blowing. And I mean, you make a good point. You see that same trend at many different sites all over the world. If you ask the indigenous people about this site, they say that they inherited it and reclaimed it. Like different places like Machu Picchu, for example, and really like many different sites from all over the world, that we see the same trend where like the our more recent ancestors found these sites. This is how I see it. Our more recent ancestors found these sites and claimed them as their own and re-inhabited them and built
Yep.
on top of them. But
Yep.
a lot of them still carry this lore, this mythology that we didn't create this site. We inherited it from our ancestors. And I mean, you can also see what's interesting is that you can see that the more ancient parts of the site, for example, at Machu Picchu is a beautiful example of this. The older foundations of construction are built using way more advanced techniques and a way finer finish and way better craftsmanship than the older layers, which were built more recently. And so the question is, what happened to the knowledge and the techniques and the technologies that were used to create these older parts? Why is it that we see almost this regression in building ability and engineering ability? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's what blows my mind. But again, yeah, it's like you said. I always ask myself, I say, where the hell are their tools? If you have all these ancient structures, where the hell are their damn tools?
Mm.
But again, that's why it's a mystery. Will we ever know? I'm not sure. But again, that's another factor that will contribute to this great
Let me
awakening.
let me
Huh?
just say one more thing about that. I was listening to this interview that a guy who studies this topic. He's really brilliant. His name is Randall Carlson,
Yeah, I've
and
heard him.
yeah, and he's talking about how if hypothetically all of humanity left Earth today, like just in a purely hypothetical situation, if all of humanity suddenly disappeared and all of our buildings and cities were left behind, over the course of 5,000, 10,000 years, there would only be two structures remaining on planet Earth. Only two. And you know which one they are? You could probably guess one of them.
I man
The
made.
one would be the pyramids at Giza, and the other would be Mount Rushmore.
Wow.
It's only these massive megalithic stone sites that endure the test of time. Steel, iron, all these metal, glass constructions without maintenance, they corrode. They
Mother
break.
Nature takes over. Mother
Over
Nature takes it back.
nature takes over 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 10,000 years, there would be virtually no sign left of present day humanity. So that really gives you a perspective when we're talking about 4.5 billion years on planet Earth, 10,000 years. That really gives you some perspective about how much we are potentially missing.
I agree. Um, so to move on to the last and final topic that I wanted to talk to you about, another one that I like to think about, UFO disclosure in a post-disclosure world.
Boom. Yep, yep.
Mic drop. What's your views on that, man?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, who knows for sure? I think there is potentially some connection here between the UFO phenomenon that we are seeing in our skies and these ancient mysteries. I'm not saying for sure. I'm saying there's a possibility. Who knows? I think there is a chance that as we learn more and more about one topic, we'll also learn more and more about the other. So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, at this point, we are so far beyond the conversation of is this real, is this not real? We are so far beyond that, and every time I have this conversation, I try to make that clear that this isn't a conversation anymore about like is the UFO phenomenon real or is it not? It is 100% a scientific fact, as confirmed by the U.S. Department of Defense. For the first time in history, the U.S. Navy stated openly that it was having very real encounters with some sort of craft or some sort of phenomenon that was officially classified as unidentified. And these objects were not only recorded on video, they were not only tracked on radar, and we have official radar returns showing their exact movements, how fast they were going. These objects descending from the atmosphere 80,000 feet up to right above sea level in a split second, like traveling at hypersonic velocities, doing all these crazy maneuvers that, basically just violate our entire understanding of the laws of physics and space and time, disappearing in one place and reappearing in another, traveling like crazy speeds, like 10,000 miles an hour, and they'll do a right angle turn without slowing down.
And
Like this is
you don't see it doesn't show any propulsion either. That's another thing. It
Exactly.
doesn't show any propulsion. No
It's
smoke, no
traveling at
nothing.
hypersonic speeds, but there's no sonic booms. There's no wings on this craft. We can't tell how they generate lift, and there's no apparent means of propulsion. Like if you look at every rocket or every airplane, you see the propulsion. You see the exhaust. That's what's driving it forward. This is some kind of technology or some kind of phenomenon. Whatever it is, it's something that is way beyond our current understanding in so many different respects. Yeah, so there is an abundance, a huge amount of evidence. Basically, every single government in the world, I believe, has a cache of just like a bunch of different documents and documented encounters and video evidence and all that about like demonstrating that this is 100% real. And I do think that this is another part of this great awakening, that humanity is collectively opening its collective mind to this bigger picture understanding of our place in the cosmos, that we are not alone, far from it. Like the universe is teeming with life. And not only that, but yeah, there are, again, who knows what it is? Who knows, like, what's clear is that these objects are operating in an intelligent way. Like they respond to the movements of these fighter jets who are trying to track them down, and they're very elusive. They're always one step ahead. They're always dancing around, like, really
More
understanding
more
them.
advanced than us. More
Yeah,
advanced than us.
there's some intelligence that's controlling these objects, whatever they are. Some intelligence. I'm not even necessarily saying that these are extraterrestrial beings from another planet. That's one hypothesis, that's one possibility, but I believe that in some cases it could be even stranger than that. Like
Yeah. Do
I
you
yeah.
do you feel that I find it suspicious that they're not denying it anymore. They've come out with a supposed space force that's coming out. Do you feel there's another agenda behind this? Obviously maybe fake an alien invasion or whatever it is. Do you think there's a darker agenda behind all of this, because it's kind of coincidental?
Yeah, I mean, potentially. The thing is that obviously there's not just one agenda going on here, right? Like there's many, it's a very complex issue because there's literally millions of different stakeholders. There's millions of different people who are I don't know. I mean, I do think that there I like it's very complex. It's hard to know where to begin. I mean, I do think that yes, I've heard about this idea of faking an alien invasion to kind of like mobilize the army and get all this defense spending. I, I I think that's a possibility. I don't discount it. But I don't think there's necessarily like I think there's a lot of people involved in this who don't necessarily have bad intentions. I think a lot of people are trying to do what they think is according to their best intentions, but of course that looks very different for different people. I definitely don't think that like the powers that be they're obviously concealing this from humanity. Like there's so much data and concrete evidence that they're just sitting on without making us aware. And so like what does that mean? Like that's a violation of our trust as a people, as a nation. I think like these people in power are supposed to be representing us. And
Yeah.
if we have concrete evidence, like definitive evidence that we are being visited by something, that's our like God-given human right to be a part of that, to know that, because that affects us too. Like we're all in this together, right? And
Yeah.
yet, I mean, clearly that's not the case because we don't know it, and like most of us are completely oblivious to the piles and mountains of evidence that I do believe various government entities are sitting on right now.
Even Trump has come out and said, it's insane. But there's also other uh, views to the topic as well. I'm gonna have an episode with this guy, Dr. Michael P. Masters. He has a book, Identified Flying Objects, and he calls them extraterrestrials. And he believes this is what I was telling you about. He states that aliens are us from the future to study ourselves in the past, just like how an archaeologist studies bones of past animals and stuff to get a better idea what they were like. We are the aliens, and that again that flips it completely on its head. He also links it to tourism. People are going to pay a lot of money to be able to go into the past, and it just makes me think of Elon Musk and all his crazy ideas, how he wants to have 1 million people on Mars by 2050. That's incredible. So,
I mean,
I don't
yeah,
know,
I
man.
think it's an intriguing idea, and again, like just my general perspective is that I'm not gonna discount any possibility because I think all possibilities are on the table, but I'm also hesitant to just immediately buy into that because it's a hypothesis, right? At the end
Yeah,
of the day,
yeah.
it's a possibility, it's a conjecture, it's an idea, but
hmm
I mean, what's his proof? There's no proof.
Well, I
There's no
mean,
proof of it. And like also the other thing is that it's clear that whatever the like when we say UFOs, that's not just one thing. Like
Yeah.
that includes thousands and thousands, if not millions, of different sightings from all throughout history. And even the way that UFOs are described, there's a huge range of sightings of different types of objects or different, different phenomena, whatever they
Yeah.
may be. And
So
so, like, the
so
term UFO encapsulates a very, very broad range of various different phenomena. And who knows? Yeah, maybe that could be one part of it. I don't think that's the whole picture. I
to
think
play
that,
devil's advocate, I mean, the guy does have a PhD in anthropology, and his theory behind it is that we're going to eventually evolve to that in advance. Because again, you know, you can only go up from here. You know what I mean? We're eventually we have evolved all these thousands and millions of years. It's a possibility.
it's a
I think
possibility.
it's awesome. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
so to summarize, Jonas, so we can wrap this up. We covered these six topics, whatever you want to call them. Any final words for? And obviously there was more, and you can check out his YouTube video about it. He talks about other ones that I didn't talk about here. And any final words that you want to add? Any final thoughts before we close this out?
Ah, man. Well, it's man. Honestly, like, in my perspective, I do think it's really an honor and a blessing to be alive on Earth at this time. Like, that's literally how I see it. I think that this is a very momentous time in history that has been eons in the making. Like, again, this I think that I see this as there's some kind of, like, evolution or unfolding that's happening here that's ultimately bigger than humanity, but we're all a part of it. We're all an expression of it. And yeah, it's a unbelievable time to be alive here on Earth. It's very exciting. I do think that in some ways, I do think that the collective situation will continue to get worse before it gets better in some ways, in some senses. But I keep in mind the fact that, like, again, in the bigger picture, 100 years is nothing. 100 years is the blink of an eye, you know. So, like, our entire lifetime is the blink of an eye in the bigger picture. And I do believe that over the longer term, I have infinite faith in life itself. Like, in the bigger picture, all is well. No matter how this unfolds, man, it's gonna get crazy out here. Like, we're just seeing, it's gonna, like, beyond what we can even imagine. It's really gonna start popping off. I think it already is, and it's just gonna continue. But over the long term, like, in the bigger picture, I have nothing but absolute trust and faith in the divine wisdom of life itself. Like, in the bigger picture, all is well. All is well, and that will always be true. So, yeah, I'm excited for the ride. I'm curious to see where it'll take us, and time will tell.
Those are beautiful words, and that'll be on my next trailer.
Awesome.
So Jonas, what's your YouTube channel again, so people can check you out before we head out?
Thanks, brother. It's called Cosmic Consciousness with Jonas, and yeah, come check it out. I talk about a bunch of different topics related to all this stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to get some of that wisdom and knowledge, head over there. Again, Jonas, thank you so much, man. I was really excited for this episode. I feel it was a solid one, and each of those topics could be an episode of
Yeah,
their
yeah.
own, because it goes so much deeper than what we touched and what we elaborated on. You know, there's
Absolutely.
so many
Yeah.
other things. But
Yeah.
again, thank you so much, Jonas. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, brother.
Well, there you have it. Again, thought-provoking topics that could be episodes all on their own. Really enjoyed this one. Remember to follow us on social media at the Juan on Juan podcast. Shoot us an email if you want to be on the show, have anything interesting that you want to talk about, whatever. The Juan on Juan podcast at gmail.com. Also, remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, leave us a review, whatever. And I hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you so much.